On this part 2 of our 2-part selection episode, Kevin Ryan, we talk about culture and everything that is swirling around this election that isn't a political issue. It's all coming up.
The following is brought to you by Just Another Pilot.
Hello and welcome everybody to part 2 of our November 1st selection episode. And at the end of this episode, I will be making my selection. But I got to consult my boy, Kevin Ryan. All right, we've had our head, our intelligence on already to help me break through where we are in this election. But I need my heart. I need my soul. And for that, I need to bring on Kevin Ryan. Kevin, I'm trying to make my decision on where I believe this race is going to go. And I don't think that it's groundbreaking to say that it is very, very close. However, I need to understand the world in which this election is taking place in. And that's what we've always talked about, that politics is downstream from culture. Culture feels certain things, and then politically, you will see various elements and causes and candidates that get animated by it. So where is the world right now? What is the defining vibe of our modern America?
Oh, man, what a great question. And here's the issue with that question. Like, I usually defer to you on that. I'm like, well, my friend Justin would say, so you're just talking about like the social or cultural and political climate right now?
Yeah, there's just, what kind of like movies are we watching? What kind of music are we consuming? What are the what are the news stories that are sticking? I feel like that's the kind of thing that if you were to write like the 50,000 foot view of like the 2020s, that's the kind of stuff that you talk about, right?
Yeah. So Taylor Swift is kind of catching her breath at the moment.
Okay.
Movies? Yeah, I mean, it's Halloween time, so there's that. But yeah, I know what you mean.
You want to know? I guess this sucks because there's just no mainstream anymore. There's no like single gathering point except for politics, and that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah. So I think you handled this question really well in the interview with Taylor Lorenz. I really enjoyed that, by the way. You guys,
thank you.
Really had a great discussion about the state of the media, and I liked your points on tech media, because I think it's like a shame what has happened to it in the past.
Yeah.
But I think it's coming back, which I think I'm able to answer your question now.
Okay.
What's your opinion on dark MAGA and the whole dark MAGA movement?
I mean, it feels like a meme regurgitating itself. Right? Because there was, if we're going to meme through the Biden presidency, there was Let's Go Brandon, right? Which was the beginning of the right going from a Donald Trump supporting entity that attacks everybody that is around it. Donald Trump, for the first time in his political career, sidelined. And so you saw that there was this remnant of America that was mad at Joe Biden and wanted to meme about it. And so there was the F word Joe Biden chant that then was said, oh, they're saying Let's Go Brandon. And so like there's that. Then Biden catches wind of that and it becomes dark Brandon. And so those are all the memes of Joe Biden with the glowing eyes.
The glowing eyes, yeah.
And that really becomes, I think, at its peak during the 2022 midterms where Democrats overperform. And so now you have like dark MAGA, which is, I think, a take off Dark Brandon, but it is also an opportunity for the Trump campaign to raise money by selling black on black merch.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good characterization. It's so fascinating because this relates to the idea of like what's sticking and what isn't. And with regard to the election, I mean, like Kamala Harris as a candidate is like groundbreaking, you know, like from an identity perspective, a black woman running for president, but that story never stuck. It's just like it got swept up in assassination attempts.
Yeah.
And
well, she's also run against it because inherent to the concept of Kamala Harris running for the presidency is that she does not want to be Hillary Clinton. A woman has gotten this far once. She ran against Donald Trump and she lost, and her name was Hillary Clinton. So things that Hillary did, let's not do. And at the top of the list was I'm with her. Let's not run this like women and girls. You'll always remember the one time that I fulfilled your fantasies. Like there's none of that. Kamala did not want to do that. She was like, I'm here. I'm a candidate. I happen to be a woman. I'm going to be proud of what I do. And I'm proud of what I've done. However, I have worked for America, which I think was wise by them. But really, the DNA of that campaign is all about what we're not. Kamala's not Hillary. She is not Donald Trump. The one person that she hasn't really been able to find the not for is Biden. And that leads us to the tricky push and pull there.
Yeah, and it's funny, like a lot of these, it's been interesting the last 3 months, especially to watch legacy media because they're squirming like an injured dog. Like they're really having a hard time landing things, and there's sort of a sensationalism that is. It's fascinating. I mean, it's always been there. We were kind of talking back and forth through text about the Atlantic story about, you know, Trump wants generals like Hitler. But you know, that nobody really bought that, you know, and even when there was such a concerted effort to legitimize that narrative. So it's interesting, like, to watch this institution disintegrate in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
Let's get some marshmallows, man.
I know. How angry is America?
Pretty angry. Yeah.
You think so?
Like fed up. Yeah. Like, and I can give you more of the conservative leaning.
Well, yeah, and I guess that's the thing is like we know that obviously, look, let's strip partisanship out of it, right?
Yeah.
The animating elements that are going to move this election is the economy, first and foremost. So let's throw everything else out the window to our own peril. Let's throw the border out the window. Let's throw abortion out the window. Let's only look at the economy. The reality is that the economy is mostly tarred and feathered because of inflation, and inflation does not affect everybody equally. I've got a lot of people in my life that are middle class to upper class that are making, you know, multiple six figures to support a family, which is like, okay, but, or good, it's very good, but they don't feel inflation. Like every once in a while, it's a, like, but if they've got money in the stock market and they've kept their job, then these 4 years have been fine. They've been good. Yeah. Like I've had conversations with friends of mine where I'm like, yeah, people are really pissed about the economy. And they're like, I don't know, the economy's amazing. And for them, it is. I don't think that they are lying. And they're not such hardened partisans that I think that they would lie about their own existence. Now, we're kind of in the middle with my family because we have a new baby and my wife's been out of work for damn near a year. So it's like that's not great. You know, you wouldn't describe somebody looking for a job for a year not being able to get it as an amazing economy. It's not something that's fantastic. Now, I think she's going to get work, and she's looking forward in her pay range, but that makes sense. But what I don't know is how much of the rest of the country is what we have seen with people that are in the lower middle class and below that, where inflation does suck. Inflation is like a very persistent, very, very upsetting element of the last 4 years. And have they seen wage growth to overtake it? That's what I'm like. If I'm really, really, really coming down to one core issue, it is that how much of the country truly felt like psychic pain because they radically felt poorer without changing anything else in their lives.
Yeah, I think it's most people. I think it's most Americans feel that way. Certainly, like everybody I'm around, even my friends and family and coworkers and all that who are like more comfortable economically than I am, are like, they're like, things are a little tighter. Like, things are a little tighter than they used to be. It's a little harder to do things than it was. There's even like my wife, the most personal example for me, she's not political at all.
Yeah.
She hates politics. She's like not, I mean, if she had to choose, she would go left, or she would say she's a Democrat, but she doesn't want to be bothered with that choice.
Yeah.
And she is paying attention because it's affecting the economy and just groceries, gas.
Yeah.
All those things are, it's too much, man. And there, we have this, like, I forget the philosopher's name, but he said the masses are always conservative, or they lean conservative. And I don't know how true that is.
Yeah.
But there is a movement right now, I think, where that's growing. I think people are the public opinion at least is becoming more conservative.
Well, it's certainly more conservative than I think it's been in the past. And
Yes.
Part of that is because you've seen a breakdown of gatekeepers who were by and large big city liberals. And so if now people in New York and LA have less of a say, then just by the average, you're going to see the consumption of conservative thought go up on some level, if even just because the average group of people that you are watching on YouTube probably have more intellectual diversity than the people that are at the New York Times and NBC and ABC and CBS and wherever your local newspapers staff was. That they're probably going to lean more liberal than your average group of influencers.
Yeah, I think a good example of that was I really enjoyed your the Hinchcliffe piece, like your take on that, because that was such a fiery. The response to that was so fiery, and I think a lot of it was disingenuous. And I kind of sit like your response, where you just talk about how a lot of people don't realize that Trump rallies. There is a solemn aspect to it. There's a certain gravitas to it that Tony Hinchcliffe maybe wasn't the right person for.
Well, let me put it this way: it's like whenever I've interviewed people at Trump rallies, you will universally get the sense that they felt they needed to be there. They felt like this is so. It's like, imagine what you would feel, dear listener, if you could get into a time machine and see Abraham Lincoln speak in front of you, right?
Yeah.
Now dilute that by like 10%, by 90%. But whatever that feeling is, there's a string of that goes through those rallies. Now Trump is allowed to say whatever he wants. Like Trump can make jokes, Trump could sing a song, Trump could do a little floor routine, and everybody would love it. Everybody would love it. But everybody else, there's like a toleration, unless you're on Fox News a lot, Like, if you're on Fox News a lot, like Marjorie Taylor Greene can say whatever she wants because people know her as a firebrand, right? But everybody else, like your local senator, your local dude that you kind of know, everyone's like happy that the music stopped playing for 5 seconds, but nobody really cares. Just come on, get to.
Dude, I bet it was Barron. I bet Barron put it in like, "Hey, Dad, you should have this guy kill Tony on at your rally."
Yeah, I mean, that's another element of this election that I'm very, very curious. So all right, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
More popular, the same amount of popular, or less popular than 2016? Donald Trump right now.
Oh, vastly more popular. I would say.
More popular.
Yeah. And I mean, we can look at popularity, at like how you want to define that. Versus like notoriety. I mean, he used to be able to call in MSNBC whenever he wanted in 2016.
Morning Joe. Yeah.
Whenever he wanted. But so that aspect is different. But I mean, just he is the images of this campaign belong in every single history book about the history of America. I mean, it's just been so historic, and there are people like I said about my wife, people who don't get involved with politics at all are saying like, I feel like I should say, I mean, Dr. Phil just was like, look, guys, I got to tell you something at Madison Square Garden. I mean, like that whole experience to me was, and Trump on Rogan, and he kept using the word surreal. And I think that so much of his campaign has been so surreal, and the level of fame that he's achieved now is, it's unprecedented for us any of us.
Well, it was unprecedented in 2016. As soon as he became the president of the United States, that was it. He was the most famous person on the planet. I don't think anyone comes close to him. I think the only, you could maybe say, if we're just looking at raw people have opinions about you throughout the world, it's like soccer stars and Trump. Yes. Like maybe like Modi, but even then, like Modi's got like 1 billion people, and maybe whoever else is allowed to learn about him in China, maybe Xi or something like that. Like, but even then, go into Iowa. Did they have an opinion about Narendra Modi? Do they have an opinion about Xi Jinping? I don't know. But I would assume, if you go and you see these rallies that Trump will do abroad and he packs people in. I mean, certainly people have an opinion. I guess part of that is also that U.S. news is just distributed so widely throughout the world. Like nobody has the news penetration that the United States does.
Yeah, for sure. I have a lot of family in Ireland, so they're asking. Ireland is so connected to America politically. So they're very, very focused on who the president is. And, but all my friends, I think that there are like villages that have just been barely discovered. And those people know about Trump. I think he is ubiquitous as a person. Here's one thing that I was talking to my wife about. Like, do you think he has changed?
So I have been on this program saying that I do believe that Donald Trump has untreated PTSD. I don't think that you can get shot in the head on national television and not. We certainly have not heard a lot about Donald Trump doing deep immersive therapy sessions so he can unlock the trauma that is almost having your head exploded like a watermelon in front of everybody that you know and live on television. I think that was a huge moment of this campaign that will probably be explored more when the books are written about it. Do I think he's changed? No, not particularly. I think that he's always been an instinctual guy. I do think that he knows more of the rules of the game now. So he is, if maybe by like 15%, slightly less impulsive. He certainly has surrounded himself that don't leak like they used to. You don't read about like the days of our lives, who's dating who's in charge of what. Like now the stories that you hear about the Trump campaign are either deliberately put out there or they're like general, like, well, he's mentioned Michael Whatley a lot, so he's going to definitely blame Michael Whatley if he loses. Like, those are the kind of stories that you hear right now, not Michael Whatley has hired lawyers just in case Donald Trump tries to sue him or something. And those were the stories that we were reading in 2016 and 2020. So I think he's put together a more cohesive team. And I think that has to come from the idea that he believes he does not know everything about politics. He does need to trust people around him. I think he does trust his team that's there now, but I don't think he's changed. I think he remains.
Morally?
No, I don't know if he's morally changed.
Okay.
Maybe he's less, if just through anger or through age, he's maybe less angry, maybe. You've seen more often the calm. We call it the crump. The calm Trump. You've seen that, like Rogan.
It's
prime crump. Yeah. Prime crump. Yep. That was him. Like, well, you walk in and next thing you know, you see it's the Lincoln bedroom. Tall man, Lincoln. Robert E. Lee, 19 defeats in a row. He wanted to do. My son's tall, by the way. Barron, 6'9". Anyway, they wanted Robert E. Lee on and he's weaving.
The wave.
That was good. You see that more with him. He's a little bit less snorting, mad, but at the same time, it's like
she's a dog.
Yeah, exactly.
Your wife is a dog.
I don't know if he's called Kamala ugly. He's called her dumb every which way but loose.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he's called her ugly.
Low IQ.
Yes.
He likes going for the IQ.
Yeah, he calls her an idiot but he has not called her ugly, which was not beyond his ability in 2016. He would call women ugly all the time.
Yeah. Just the way he interacted with Megyn Kelly, even he does interact with people differently. That's a good point. Like he
slightly.
He
I mean, like on the margins. On the margins. I don't want to give too much credit to Chungus on that. But I guess here's the thing. I'm getting all this information. I'm trying to make this decision, and the stuff that like the left has said since Kamala came in and she started having big crowds is like, oh, Trump's crowds are small. Like he is drawing less people than he did before. Now, I have not sensed that. No. Also, I think that it is a very, very, very lame, I think it's a fruitless battlefield to play on just because either you're filling arenas or you're not. But like when you're doing 6 events a day and you're playing the same metro area for the 3rd time in 4 weeks, it's like, all right, really, what are we doing here? But still, I don't know. I mean, maybe there is something to that I'm just not processing.
Yeah, that was an interesting tactic all along because I think it wasn't really aimed at us. It was aimed at Trump to like kind of just like you were in the last debate or in the only debate between Kamala and Trump. That was something that you pointed out that was helpful is like the antagonism from Kamala is to like rattle Trump.
Yeah.
And because you and I have covered a lot of Trump rallies and we've covered a lot of Kamala events. And, I've been lucky to cover Kamala events where it was me and a photographer from AP. We were at a church in Iowa and for a Sunday service. And I really got to see, being within 6 feet of Kamala Harris as she's kind of practicing her routine. She's fascinating. She's not the like idiot that conservatives think. She's actually has like a vicious, very sharp political instinct that I think a lot of people don't even know it's there, but she knows what she's doing.
Yeah, the question with her has never been her raw talent. That's what everybody has gravitated to her now twice, once at the beginning of the 2019 cycle and then once after she takes over for Biden. The question has been, can she put it all together? And in 2019, it totally fell apart. Now she has no choice but to run it to the end. We'll see exactly what everybody says on Wednesday. The energy for her initially was obviously off the charts. There's no way that you can say it any other way. But you know, the DNC was weird. The DNC was an odd feeling. It's not a cohesive coalition, the Democrats. Now, can they patch it up for Christmas, so to speak, like when it's Donald Trump or her? Likely, right? Maybe. By the polls, you can see it. But at the same time, there is this huge contingency of America that says they want to know more about her. And if they don't know, if they want to know more about her, that means they're unsure of her. And so that's what I don't know is like on the left can't see a world where people capitulate to Trump. Like it is unfathomable. That is one thing that I think I know for sure is like people on the left who are voting for Kamala are like either Kamala wins or the world is wrong. The world is incorrect. It's like all of a sudden the world is going to tell us that we breathe water and like it's just not a sane place to be. On the right, I think everybody's, you know, aside from diehards, like the right seems to believe, yeah, Trump couldn't lose. He already lost once. Like a lot of people don't like him. Like there's a lot of people that are holding their nose or have come around or now look at Trump as like, yeah, I didn't like him, but you know, geez, inflation, right? Or the wars or something like that. The RFK voters who are not natural Trump people, but now look at him as the lesser of two evils compared to a Democratic machine that they don't like, however vanishing few those are. But none of them view the world as like fundamentally broken if Trump doesn't win. They might think that the country will go on the wrong path, but I don't think that they assume that there's something wrong with like society.
I've experienced something different with on the right side of things. Like even to the extent of like, and I think a lot of it hinges on whether or not it's a fair election. Because I think that's really the narrative on the right is like, there's only one way Trump's going to lose. And if it's stolen from him. And if that happens, the country's gone. We might as well like descend into some other kind of state. Like this country will no longer work if this election doesn't work. That I'm hearing that level of like concern. And but it's like there's a certitude to that concern. Like I know for a fact that if he doesn't get it, then that this has been stolen and I don't know what to do with that information. Like so there is a lot of like fear on both sides.
But also the one thing about that from the right side is that for all of that righteous anger, that is built in, especially to right-wing media, but also is the resignation that, yep, that's what they do. That's what that's what they do. They cheat, they lie, they steal, they control the media, you know, like they are blah, 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 right? Like, so there's a resignation, like built into even the firebrands of like Rush Limbaugh was the idea that we're pointing it out, but we can't stop it. Every once in a while we can dent it, but there are cultural forces at work that we are on permanent defense. We are the insurgency. We are the small militia that is going up against the unstoppable machine. That's like so worked into at least right-wing media. Almost every right-wing media is kind of predicated on that idea.
Yeah, and I'm crazy because I love that. Like that's the team I want to be on. I'm like,
it certainly attracts. It attracts a certain personality.
Yeah, I mean that's where like on the ground frontline battle that's where you really get to smell the real gunpowder. Like you're not looking at a computer that's sending the missiles to give you an outlandish
you're packing your musket.
We don't even have like modern guns.
No, we got old guns.
I don't know, partly because I think there's a revolutionary spirit to that is necessary to maintaining the American identity, and the American identity is something I love, I cherish.
Yeah,
I think it's so important, and I mean, a lot of people when they meet me just assume that I'm like left, because I'm a weird guy. And that's cool. I'm cool with that. I'm like, shit, I forgot where I was going with that.
Yeah, no, it's because you're shaped like Baloo and you have a high weed tolerance. Like everyone's like, oh, okay, well, you look like somebody that I would find in a fish parking lot. I generally know the political diversity of that crowd, so therefore I can pin you down.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. But I love being in conservative media. I live in Oklahoma. Love being around conservatives. And I think there's like a huge advantage of that. And conservative media it's funny because it's so scrappy. It is scrappy, but it's bold. It has to be bold.
But all right, so let me tell you this though, to go back to the conversation that I had with Taylor Lorenz earlier this week.
Yeah.
Every bit of media is like that now. So it used to be that conservative media had that bent because it was relegated to the off-brand spectrum, right? It's on AM radio. It's not on FM radio. It is, the smaller column in whatever newspaper you're at, or you had to go buy a special magazine or something like that. And they became kings of those special areas. That's why conservatives got involved on the internet at such a gigantic level, because they have always had the other, the not the big thing, not movies, not TV, not big radio. They had to have their own side of it. And now the massive platforms are sadder than ever.
Yeah.
And the exciting places to be are individuals, but everybody, including, Mr. Beast, the number one guy on YouTube, is like, man, they're after me. They are out to get me. It's me against the world. And, if all media is like that, you got to wonder which candidate has that energy. And I guess Trump has that energy. I mean, Trump's energy is they're trying to put me in jail. They tried to kill me. Like I am fighting. Why am I fighting if not fighting for the right reasons?
Yeah, no, it's interesting with regard to like the degradation of the institutions. It's so interesting because you and I both have a lot of friends at outlets all over the place. And it has been interesting to say like, hey, welcome to the trenches, where your Pulitzer doesn't matter. Like you're out here, it's muddy. Like you can't drink your tea with your pinky up anymore. This is a different world.
No, they're all getting off the train in Deadwood, and they're like trying to bring all of their big box luggage, and meanwhile there's just some old cowpunk spitting,
Yeah, no, that's what it feels like, and I think it's good. I think it's a team building exercise for our entire industry.
So there we go. Now we're getting somewhere. This is about a world in change, a shifting world now more than ever. And let's say, okay, that's been going on for a while, but what's different is that we've gotten used to the free fall, and now we are thinking about where we go. What gets built now? What money do we put to what to make, now yesterday isn't coming back. Everybody can scream, oh, it would have been better. It was better with the gatekeepers. They're dead. The old gods are dead. We're done with that. build a church to your new place of worship, and try to build a world that is bigger and better, that doesn't repeat the same mistakes. And so I guess, all right, that happens midstream for the Democrats. For the Democrats, in the middle of it, they're like, oh my God, this is going so bad. We need to change. Let's hot swap and see whether or not something is different. I don't know. I just.
So, Robert Nisbet was a writer I really like, a philosopher, sociologist. He wrote a book, Twilight of Authority, and it just talks about, he leans right, and he kind of blames the disintegration of authority. It began with Wilson, and sort of his overstep of executive powers, and how that has led. It began a distrust, and that which caused a resultant sort of like dark enlightenment reaction to to authority as a whole. And in America we like to do things big, so this disintegration it's sort of blanketed authority as a concept, or anything with authority. But obviously that becomes like a real tumble. So we are mid tumble in an era that's accelerating. Like another one of my favorite philosophers talks about, like, the disappearance of geography as a result of the acceleration of society and technology. Like, just our physical space has vanished. Which I find that fascinating as well.
This is your update, brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. That's where you support us on Substack. We mentioned in the first episode, I will mention again, the $99 deal was going to go away on Halloween. I got enough email from you guys saying that money-wise, it would be helpful if it extended into a little bit into November because of when you guys get paid. Thank you for emailing me. You asked, we listened. It's available until Election Day. So, $99, 150 episodes of PX3 for a year. Lock it in, Janual. It's a great deal. So go ahead, take advantage of it. Let's get into some stories that we didn't have a chance to cover. Former President Trump is suing CBS for what? $10 billion. Trump is suing CBS for $10 billion, alleging that 60 Minutes interview with Vice President Harris was deceptively edited to portray her favorably. Filed in Texas federal court, the lawsuit accuses CBS of election interference and news distortion. CBS denies the claim, stating that the interview was fairly presented. Trump has criticized CBS since the interview, partly due to Harris's omitted response on Gaza, which CBS did publish online but not on television. Trump planned a similar interview but withdrew, and CBS insisted on fact-checking. The lawsuit is assigned to Judge Matthew Kacsmaryk, known for rulings favorable to conservative causes, but I don't really get the sense that this is going to go much of anywhere. It is a headline today. For an interview that I don't think particularly went well for Kamala anyway, it sure does seem to be a bugaboo for conservatives. And part of that is because you had that clip that came out online that had a little bit more of a word salad answer, and then that was edited out of the final broadcast. Regardless, look, the merits of this case notwithstanding, I don't know enough legally to know whether or not it has any legs to stand on. No common law class that I took in college makes me think that this is something that you should be sued for $10 billion for. So I will err on the side of journalism here. I will also say, from the perspective of a journalist, is that far too often, and this is something that, man, I really wish, as things are changing in our modern media landscape, that journalists can learn to be just a little bit more forthcoming with stuff. Like, if you're rush team that does promos is different than the final product of, what you put out, and people are upset about it, don't just close ranks and say, screw you. You have no idea what's going on here. Try to bring light. If the point of a journalistic outfit is to bring light to the world, which I would hope that it is, then you shouldn't have any kind of problem with bringing light to your own process and your own organization. I know that I try to do that in the limited capacity that I do here. And obviously it takes a lot more effort and it takes a lot more discipline. And quite frankly, it takes a lot more leadership to do it in a much larger organization. But I don't think that it's bad, especially during an election. If there is questions on what was cut and why it was promoted but then not aired, then release a transcript. I think that that's fair. I think that that's fine. I think that if the point is speaking truth to power, then you should. Last night, Donald Trump called former Representative Liz Cheney a war hawk who should be fired upon as he raged against one of his most prominent intra-party critics while campaigning Thursday night in Arizona. Quote, "She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay?" The former president said at a campaign event in Glendale with Tucker Carlson. "Let's see how she feels about it, when the guns are trained in her face." Okay. So Liz Cheney came out and said this is how democracies are subsumed by dictators. This is very much in the line from the Democratic perspective of escalating things from the enemy within. And the 9 barrels trained at her face certainly are evocative of that of a firing squad. In the full context of the quote, which includes, let me just get here. They're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy. The full context of the quote, to me, sounds like Donald Trump is saying if she wants to go to war so bad, she should be on the front lines. Let's see how much she likes it when she has to face what soldiers face when they are dispatched into the far-flung parts of the world in which America has waged conflict. Does that matter now? No. Because this is going to be a thing, and we'll see exactly how long it goes. That being said, I was talking to a friend of mine who is canvassing for Kamala Harris in a swing state. And she has told me that, look, it's going to be really tight. There is not uniform enthusiasm for Kamala Harris amongst voters that, you only send canvassers to people that you believe are persuadable. And then she said the following: I really wish that the campaign would talk more about how to make things cheaper and less about fascism. I have said on this and other programs that I think that the high-minded ideas of this is a dictatorship, this is all going to fall to pieces, is not a winning issue. It has not been a winning issue. You could say defense of democracy with January 6th was, but I don't know if that's going to win you the voters that you need to win in a really, really high turnout election. At least over things like inflation, but immigration too. And so if we're going to get into this, like he said, she said stuff, and also you're going to center Liz Cheney in this final moments of this election, boy, I don't know. It's just not how I would draw up in my head Kamala Harris's final few days. If I were Kamala Harris, my final few days would be Abortion, 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 abortion. That's what I would be doing. I would be delivering a baby the day before election days. I would be personally making sure that women's reproductive rights were taken care of. And I would be laying out my first 100 days of what I would do that would materially affect women in red states that are at risk. That's what I would do. My first 100 days. Here's the day I am elected. Well, the problem is you can't do that because then the question is, why doesn't Joe Biden just do it now? I'd be doing something like that, though. I would rather do the why doesn't Joe Biden do it now than Liz Cheney being the star of my campaign for the final 3 days. That's what I would say. And finally, a real quick look at some of the spending that has been done in the Republicans' quest to reclaim the Senate. These are Mitch McConnell linked groups. I'm going to read these numbers for you. In Arizona, $0 spent. So we're just going to run through the swing states here. These are the big states that have seats up. Many of them are swing states. Arizona, Kerry Lake, no money from the turtle. Wisconsin, Hovde, $35 million. Michigan, Mike Rogers, $39 million. Montana, Tim Sheehy, $67 million. Of course, Montana is like a must-win state. But obviously, $67 million, that's like every ad on television in Montana. Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania, quite possibly the most important seat in terms of both the balance of power for the presidency and the Senate, $83 million. But here's the crazy one. So that's $83 million in Pennsylvania from Mitch McConnell. Let me tell you about Ohio. Bernie Moreno. Boricua, Moreno, Boricua, Moreno. $161 million. $161 million. I know I got a lot of folks in Ohio. I know I got people in Ohio that all they see is just Sherrod Brown ads, Bernie Moreno ads. Moreno, Brown, Moreno, Trump, Harris. That's why. $161 million from Mitch McConnell alone, and that is by far the largest amount of money that has been dumped into that race on the Republican side. $26 million from the candidate, $91 million from outside groups that are not Mitch McConnell. And here's the reason why. Republicans desperately believe that they can take Ohio. Sherrod Brown is a pretty entrenched incumbent. He is well liked in the state, and so it's going to take some doing. Now, this is the problem with the Donald Trump era, is that he has consistently, especially in the Senate, put forth people that have never won statewide. No former senators, no former governors, just people that are either new to politics, like Bernie Moreno, or maybe you get a Mike Rogers who was in the House, right? So that's a more traditional path to go. But there's a lot of newbies. You know, how many people have never served in politics before of that list? Kerry Lake, no. Sam Brown, no. Eric Hovde, no. Tim Sheehy, no. Dave McCormick, no. Now, McCormick's a little bit more government adjacent. I think he actually did serve in some capacity for Bush or Trump. And I know his wife served for Trump, but never elected. And Bernie Moreno, no. But that's part of the reason why you got to spend that money. Largely, not because he's a good or a bad candidate. It's just name ID. You know, when you have been elected once, then people remember, oh, yeah, that's the guy that ran or I voted for, blah, blah, blah. And that's the situation in Ohio. A lot of money, though. $161 million. Cheese Louise with cheese. And that's your update. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. $99 deal is here until Election Day. We're extended. These prices are insane. Kevin Ryan. We're back with him. What is the worst attribute of Trump and what is the worst attribute of Harris? And we're guessing what society believes, not what we believe.
Yeah.
What would society say the worst attribute of either of them are?
I mean, I think the consensus on Trump would be that he doesn't know what to say, or he doesn't know when to shut up, and he says
undisciplined,
really
undisciplined,
and barbed.
Okay. All right, so that's terrifying in the world's largest, in the most important job in the world. That you want somebody that is disciplined and not somebody that is impulsive in that position.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
Harris.
I would say the consensus on her would be that, she's just an extension of the establishment. She has a coward streak, and she's reptilian. She's like a chameleon.
Vessel. All right, so that's something that Trump has specifically said. The word vessel.
Yeah.
That she's just a vessel. Yeah.
I mean, the words he chooses are
so all right. So there we go. Sorry. Undisciplined versus vessel. That really means that Kamala Harris is not somebody that I think has made enough of an impression on America that they're like, thank God, remove Trump from this. If you were just giving her a raise, right? Like without anybody else competing for it, I don't know if people would say, yes, you've earned it. Yes, you're great. I love you. I want to take care of you. I want to support you. It will make me happy to see you happy, which was something that Obama had, and it was something that Biden had. People were like excited to see Joe Biden happy. They were excited to see Obama happy. I think that there were more people that were excited to see Hillary happy, if even just because she had a narrative of being the woman who works 4 times as hard as a man. And not only has she lived in the shadow of a man, but now she is going to get run over by a man who has never done anything in this arena, didn't do any of the work, and is just going to, Jar Jar Binks his way over her greatest achievement. But they wanted to see her happy. I don't know if that exists. I don't know if for Kamala alone, people just have that emotional connection to her.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, the reaction is sort of similar to like, hey, man, the algorithm, you're talking to the algorithm here. Quit pushing this. Quit It doesn't work. I don't want this in my feed. I don't know what it is. She just doesn't feel organically successful to me. It just doesn't. I mean, she obviously is. I mean, she's like, nobody can get that high in politics and not be a special person and like talented. But I don't know what it is. I'm not sure what it is. I think on the right, a lot of people are like, how did she wind up there?
Yeah. I mean, there's a million different ways that you can explain it, kind of like, charitably or uncharitably. This is what I keep coming back to, Kevin. When you were here, I walked you through the Drake-Kendrick Lamar feud, and we were listening to songs and smoking cigars on my porch.
Yep.
And I just need to know who's who. Like, that was an example. If we want to know what the culture's feeling, there is no other cultural moment. There's been no bigger cultural exchange in American culture, American society, than the Drake versus Kendrick Lamar feud, which was something that like was very organic, but really, and this is what I want to get to, whether or not you cared about it, was emblematic of something was different. Drake, popular as popular can get, still somebody that you want to put on at a party, still something that you want to put on when you have mixed company and girls are around. Like, Drake is still that dude. He is still the pop star supreme. And yet, the number one song in the country, and probably by the end of this year, is going to be one that calls him a pedophile, right? Which is like some of the meanest stuff that's ever happened in
brutal.
like in our world. I mean, like, it shows you we are in an age of brutality when that just gets brushed off. When Kendrick Lamar says, hey, most popular person in music, you and all your friends are pedophiles, and everyone's like, yeah, you get to host the Super Bowl. Like, you're awesome. And so why did that break the way that it broke? And for me, it's authenticity versus inauthenticity. Drake was inauthentic. Kendrick Lamar was authentic. And if that's it, then I don't think there's a question on who's more authentic amongst these two candidates. Yeah. I think it would be Trump by a mile. And then I was very, very dismayed to hear that Kamala Harris grew up in Canada, which was something that I didn't know. And I'm like, oh, well, there we go. I mean, that's the sign. Of course she's Drake. She's half black and she's from Canada.
So Trump is Kendrick?
I mean, in this scenario, but I don't know. Maybe it's the other way around. Because, by the way, there was only one candidate that played not like us at her convention, and that was Kamala.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I know.
But then again, wouldn't that be the most inauthentic thing to do, to play not like us when you're obviously inauthentic? And by the way, they played it when they took away their roll call. The most authentic thing in party politics, because it's boring and it's just there to reward the nerds, the psychopaths that like run their local political operations for no money and getting hassled and annoyed constantly. It is the reward for that. And it is bad television, but it happens every year because they get to have the moment of their lives that they're going to put framed on their desk or on their wall forever, when they get to lean into that fast food microphone and say, from the great state of 10,000, like it eliminated that and made it a television show, which is, while better TV, plasticine, it is silicone, it is AI, it is CGI. It's
spectacle. Yeah.
It is spectacle.
So there's a great book, Society of the Spectacle, by Guy Debord. And actually the better book is commentary on the Society of the Spectacle. And there's a documentary about it as well. He's a Marxist thinker, anti-establishment, who just sort of, but it factors into this idea of authenticity and inauthenticity. And I think that is part of our identity crisis, which is what you described. And part of that relates to the disintegration of the barrier between private and public, which is a dynamic which has existed throughout Western civilization, at least beginning with the Greeks.
Okay.
Where it's like, this is the home, and this is the place, the agora, where we all meet and or not all of us, the men, meet and talk politics and all that. And I think it's resulted in a sort of nudity, like cultural and political nudity. And then you can break it down to the dynamic between nudity and nakedness. So that's classy authenticity and like guttural
and crass.
And the problem with our era is that it's so topsy-turvy. Like, just as you're putting your hand on the table, it vanishes or it turns into something else. And it happens so quickly that it becomes like very difficult to discern what's authentic and what isn't. But it's something that's so important to us. And I think a lot of that relates to like the disintegration of authority. Because it's like, what? You mean I have to come up with these answers on my own?
Yeah. Yeah, which kind of leads to warlords, right? Like if there is no, if we're not all singing from the same hymnal, then everybody's got their own little marked up sheet, and that's where you find your tribes. And we continue to splinter ever fractionally forever. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's
that's dangerous. I think it is. I mean, you know, when I was in Austin, I was interviewing Michael Malice.
Yeah.
And he's a big defender of that. And I just don't
of anarchism. He is an anarchist.
Yeah, on the right side of the far like lib right.
Yeah,
I've really tried to consider that. Just like, you know, I think that's important for people to do. I'll do it with the flat Earth thing, but it's like, hey, you're just wrong. It's not flat. So I don't know. But it's. We need things local. Things should be more local. Like you've said many times, like all politics is local.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We're in such like a stressful position where we're trying to figure out locality. Like, where are the limits to what's my direct community?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm having a hard time. Oh, here, I want to talk to you about this. Neo-Puritanism. This is something else that I've detected.
Yeah.
Because as we were growing up, the popular sentiment on Vice was we were stupidly too restrictive, right?
Yes.
We were too restrictive on weed. Just tax it, bro. Like, why isn't it legal? It's just a plant, man. Like, gambling. Why do you need to go to Vegas to place a bet? So stupid. Blah, 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 blah. Right? Now both those things are like legal, nearly nationwide, either by patchwork or by, VPN. Everybody can kind of do whatever they want pretty easily. And now I have detected a strain of neo-Puritanism. And you're seeing this specifically with like Florida's got a recreational amendment on the ballot this November. I believe it's Amendment 3. And the way that
recreational weed?
Recreational weed. They have medicinal, but it's recreational.
Gotcha. Huh.
So the way that people are running against it is not to say the way that we have done it in the past, which is weed is bad for you. Weed is terrible. Weed rots the brains of children. It is instead to say, look, we all think weed is cool, but if you legalize it, people will smoke it everywhere and it brings our general quality of life down. And so we should keep it medicinal so anybody who wants to smoke weed can smoke it, but otherwise it makes it illegal in places where we can still enforce these laws. Now, that's an interesting way to run against something. You could probably also just pass consumption laws, but still, that's interesting to me because it is identifying not with the moral failings of it, but rather this, I think, natural counter to our age of liberalization, which is, okay, but where does it go too far? And you've seen a lot of these conversations that have happened, most notably on a lot of gender stuff. A lot of like, you've seen LGBTQ acceptance rates go down over the last 5 years, not because people are more conservative about the issues that we grew up with, like gay marriage, but because of everything that has happened over the last 10 years around sex and gender and transition and stuff like that. So it's like there's a neo-puritanical moment that we are in where in our vastly liberalizing society, the questions are, okay, yes, but where are the lines? I was cool with venturing out here, but where are the lines? I think everybody should be able to buy weed, but I don't want to smell it outside. So where does that leave me in terms of my political opinions? Have you detected that as well?
Yes, and I like it. I think it's good. I mean, within reason. as somebody who's a big fan of recreational weed,
hell yeah,
I think it, yeah, I think that's a great argument. You can't be shotgunning, outside a playground. Like,
yeah,
we need, and that goes back to like the personal private, dynamic.
Public private. Yeah.
I think that's good. I think, limitations and boundaries I think it's a good thing. I didn't know that was their argument. That's pretty creative. And it feels like pretty tolerant as well.
Well, also, Florida's a weird state because you need 60% to pass an amendment. So they don't even need to win majority. They just need to keep it out of 60. So if they're like, all right, look, we got the hardcores, we got the Bible belters that'll be like, no, weed's the devil's lettuce, blah, 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 blah. But we need the tweeners. We need just enough to keep it off of 60.
Yeah, and I think that's like part of it. It goes back to like the masses are conservative, just that theory.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, we did the thing,
Yeah.
You guys did the thing and we gave it to you. I'm not really into it. I don't know. I think it's good. What do you think?
I think it's just fascinating that we're here because it does mean that the liberal age of our upbringing won, and now you find that troublesome change between a revolutionary and a governor. There's a reason why revolutionaries don't usually transition seamlessly into becoming rulers, because ruling something is a lot different than overtaking something. And so it's very exciting to say, wouldn't it be rad if I could get high right now and I didn't have to fear getting arrested, or I didn't have to fear doing X, Y, or Z. That's exciting. The what happens when you're like, oh, hey, by the way, all my neighbors hate me because I smoke too much weed and it's floating into the common area. Now, whose job is that? Whose job do I need to personally change my behavior? Am I going to be forced to change my behavior by way of some kind of law? Like, there's a lot that kind of goes into that. And then there is the straight out puritanical argument for something like gambling, where you say like, okay, if we're just introducing by way of like fantasy picks and stuff like that, these gambling ideas to kids younger and younger, then are we hamstringing our youth? Are we hamstringing our youth because they are going to be too addicted to action to do X, Y, and Z? And I'm skeptical of that, but I don't deny that I've seen these arguments.
Yeah, that a lot of like my mind keeps going back to Europe, because having spent time there, they are more liberal with stuff like this, and you are seeing, like in Amsterdam, you're seeing them say, okay, yeah, we've been
but Amsterdam's so weird because they don't like weed. The Amsterdam people don't like weed. They tolerate the fact that students come in from around the world so they can smoke weed and stuff like that. But also, it's like Europe sucks for weed. Like America is two things that America is the king at: weed and beer. Like you go anywhere else in Europe, and they've got like the beer that they've done forever. Great. It's amazing. Yeah. And when America was just, Bud Light and PBR, then by far they were a superior experience. But I've been to Europe a bunch. Guess what? 2 decades of the craft brewery revolution has left, now there's 50 different little breweries around every place with a population over 10,000. And the beer's better. The beer's better here. You just have more options for it.
I'm a PBR guy, man. That's America. Pabst.
I know, ribbon. but you came over and shout out to St. Elmo's Brewery. They have a beer called Dad that you were really into, and it was exactly what you wanted.
And I asked the guy, I was like, dude, I have to see through the beer. Like, I only drink trash beer. I don't want it to. No candle beer for me. No, I agree. Yeah, because Europe has that, and that's sort of a civilizational situation here. It sounds like one of the things you're saying or like noticing is that there is a rebuilding of society taking place.
Yes, it is. It is. The old masters are gone. The ones that would never allow weed to pass. Weed's now here. Weed's here. Like, it's an industry. It's got brands. It's like anything else. It is just here. And now the question is, okay, is it too potent? Do we need to be talking to our kids differently about weed? Because before it was the dangerous gateway drug. You're going to be doing heroin if you smoke a joint, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, no, just make sure that it's not a 40% potency and your brain, just leaks out of your ears the first time you take a puff. Like, and then, I guess all of this stuff kind of then, this is, I think, more either middle of the road, if not even liberal dialogue about where we are in society and whether or not we need to have conversations about rules in our newly liberalized areas of vice. But they fully graft onto the conservative side of this that has never gone away, which is like, no girls' skirts should be down below their knees. And like, there is a level of immodesty that has corrupted our modern society that makes us less than. And I think that winds up dovetailing with the epidemic of kind of male loneliness, where you see just a lot of depression and anger on either side of these uncoupled elements of the sexes.
Yeah, it's funny that to word it that way, because actually this is the book right here that I've been trying to think of. William Graham Sumner, Folkways, A Study of Manners, Customs, and Morals. Because that's a lot of what we're discussing. It's not even like societal outside of the idea that it's like fashion. It's like we can't really explain like why different fashions catch on and which ones don't, but society as a whole does that. Like, it's sometimes it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't know if I've come any closer. I mean, I guess nothing that we've talked about makes me think that culture is blowing wind at the back of Kamala.
Yeah.
Everything would seem to say that culture is blowing wind at the back of Trump. And maybe even proof of this is, I thought Donald Trump, and it was popular understanding that Donald Trump's political career was over after January 6th. And that was something that was so ugly, that was so unsightly, that showed him at his worst, like just such a vile piss baby that could not take the L, like, and then something ugly happened. Like, he held his pants so long that he pooped himself, and that was just awful. It was terrible, and he would never come back from it. And that's where you saw all the rise of like, oh, DeSantis, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Like all these other elements, Nikki Haley, maybe, blah, blah, blah. 2022 happens. Boom. Hammer comes down on the Republican Party. There is no red wave. And then that's that. And really, it's only Donald Trump getting raided. That raid in Mar-a-Lago, and then all the subsequent the legal stuff is the first time that there was any kind of redemptive arc for Trump. That you began to see, okay, he's not just a wounded politician. He's a martyr. He's a cultural figure. Mm-hmm. He is a sign of a weaponized government that is going after this person. And that galvanizes people on the right. But it also, and nobody's paid attention to this, or at least paid attention to it enough, but I pointed it out all throughout the primaries. It was also the first time that he started running ahead of Biden. There was an independent and a mainstream idea that these things were over the edge, and Donald Trump was looked at as more sympathetically. Then he gets shot in the face, and now he's more popular than ever. So it's like, the thing that I would say is, like, all right, he might have these wins at his back. He might have all these cultural elements that are on his side, and he might have been redeemed. at the same time, he's still that person that I think America dismissed. Now, his hardcore fans never did. His hardcore fans stayed with him forever. But enough of America to elect him as president. I think we're out on this dude a little over 4 years ago. And now he's here, and he looks like he is a betting favorite, at least wherever there is money being put on this, to win. So what's fake? Is he, there's no doubt that he's rehabilitated on some level, but is he rehabilitated enough to win and overtake somebody that I don't believe has run a spectacular campaign, and I don't believe cultural headwinds are at her back, but maybe they don't need to be. Maybe Donald Trump was just that dude who was marked 4.5 years ago, and he's just never going to come back from it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I agree. And I think a lot of this is people are noticing, like, man, they're really taking this too far. And I think a lot of people who have been anti-Trump for 4.5 years are kind of looking around and saying, like, who am I standing with? Like,
yeah,
we know who we're supposed to be against, but it seems like it just seems so. It does seem like persecution. It does seem like people who are very powerful. There is a they. That's what it seems like when you look at the timeline for Trump, and it's scary, and it's like. It doesn't seem like coincidence, but I don't know. Maybe who knows, man? Who knows? This election has been exhausting.
I know. We're at the end. We're at the end. There's one thing that we do need to be. We are remiss in talking about, and our inability to get to this topic is surely caused by the sound reverberating off our penises, because it is the topic of abortion, which is obviously gendered.
Oh, yeah.
That would be the biggest cultural headwind at the back of any Democrat, but I would say Kamala Harris specifically, as she is a woman speaking to an issue that reverberates the most passionately with women because they are the ones who have babies. So here's where I don't know, all right? Obviously, Dobbs' decision comes down, and Republicans are punished for it. In 2022, they're punished in special elections. Now, neither of any of those events have the kind of turnout that a presidential election happened. A presidential election does, let alone a presidential election where Donald Trump is on the ballot and people just start crawling out from behind rocks to vote that have never voted in their entire lives because Trump animates them.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt that Republicans have to own it. And this has been something that I think has been at the detriment of the Republican Party, that what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden before her have effectively run on is not even necessarily the argument of when abortion should be legal. What they have argued against are trigger laws. They've argued that the cases that they have brought forth, I think wisely, in fact, I would spend more time on it if I were them, are stories of women who wanted to have babies, who had complications and did not get medical treatment in a timely manner because of confusion over trigger laws. Now, I think Republicans have really, really screwed up in not either clarifying or amending some of these trigger laws that were put in when nobody thought that Roe versus Wade would be overturned. It was virtue signaling to an extreme part of your party. It is not effective governing. There needed to be work done there, if even just for clarification, because that's what a lot of these cases are, is that it was the confusion around X that caused these horrifying situations where women are close to death, if not dead. That is truly terrifying. That is, get out of your house and vote right now. What I don't know is, have the Democrats made enough of an argument that women are motivated to do it? And have we seen 2 years on, have people felt, not heard about, felt in their lives that that things are materially different? Because take away pro-choice voters in general, they were always going to vote for Democrats. But if you're looking for that critical mass, you need people that weren't even pro-choice voters, but now are going to vote because of it. And for that to happen, I think that they need to see that the world is a little different. And that's where I would say Democrats are at fault for not making this more present, because this is the bread and butter. You know, if they lose authority on this, that's a big problem for them. But it's certainly not a problem in this election. They own it. So I don't know. Where do you think the Dobbs of it all?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I think like part of your question, I think, is how much is this going to affect the election?
Yeah.
Like the handling of the issue of abortion on both sides. And I think from the Democrats, it's just like they already have that vote, like you said. Like it's, and I don't know if like their rhetoric has been solemn enough in the right direction. And that's something that the right has always been able to capture. And then like there's this whole movement within like the pro like anti-abortion movement.
Yeah.
Specifically with Catholics. I mean, you're seeing American Catholicism becoming more and more conservative and more staunch against abortion. And then there was Kamala snubbing the what was it, the Al Smith
the dinner? Al Smith dinner. Yeah.
So there are a lot of people, I think, on the other side, on the anti-abortion side, who feel like, well, I wasn't going to have a problem with this, but now I do. So I could see it going either way. Because I think there's like a little bit, the focus on liberation on the left is, I think, wrong. And I think you're spot on in that it needs to be like a more critical focus on health and all of that. Yeah, it's fast. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how much.
I mean, because if Kamala Harris wins, it's going to be a Dobbs thing. I think that I am sure.
No, you're right.
That I am sure of.
You for sure. Yeah, that's her strongest point. Yeah. With Trump, what's Trump's biggest?
The economy.
Point?
It's inflation.
Yeah.
It's again, and this we started there, that like for people who make in a household more than $200,000 a year, this was like, yeah, I had to think about what we went to H-E-B instead of Whole Foods, right? Like that's what this last couple years has been. If you make under that, then I think you're pretty pissed. You're really annoyed, because nobody wants to feel. Say whatever you will about the American experiment, but we are a people that prides ourselves on moving forward. We beat ourselves up when we don't, and we resent people that take us off the Candyland board and set us 4 spaces back. And I think that's what inflation was. That's what pissed people off about inflation, was that it's like, I just became poorer. Why did I become poorer? Like I didn't do anything. I just sat here and I just became poorer. But that was annoying. That's Trump's thing. And then also there's the border. The fact that like he's been screaming and yelling about the border since 2016, and now Kamala Harris is talking about building a wall. He won. He won that. That one, that like he now, does it get him the presidency? We'll see. But there's no doubt that people believe that there is more of a problem on the border than there has been in the past, especially in big cities.
Whew, man. What are we going to do, brother?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, here's where I'm at. I believe I'm going to count up all the things that we talked about.
Yeah.
The culture is feeling Donald Trump. That is where the societal winds are blowing.
Mm-hmm.
But is it enough? I will have my final judgment, but I want to wish my friend, Mr. Kevin Ryan, thank you for coming on. Please
let me plug you real quick. Plug
me.
Anybody who's not already doing so, watch Justin's coverage of the election.
Yes.
This man right here I consider you the greatest political commentator in America. And you are so sharp when you're live. Like, that's what really, like, clued me into that. Watching you cover debates and just your poise and your sharpness. And anytime there's one of those situations and you're covering it, I'm putting it on. So anybody who's looking for somebody to watch that night, put on Justin.
Well, we will be streaming live. We will have a cavalcade of stars, and it'll be a good time. We will see whether or not we have any kind of winner that night. Do you think we're going to have a winner on election night?
Probably not. I hope we do, man. I just want to go to sleep. We just need a break.
My God.
But yeah, probably won't happen.
Dude, we just had the baby had her 2-month checkup literally today, but we got the go ahead that we don't need to wake her up every 5 hours to feed.
Ooh,
so
good.
That is so we have a shot at like sleeping through the night. Before we had no shot at sleeping through the night. Now we have a shot at sleeping through the night. Now whether or not we will, who knows? But
no, you won't.
We will not.
We have a shot though.
We have a shot.
Yeah.
We have a shot. She's been a good sleeper so far. And we did also get the okay that if the baby is asleep after nursing, that she can just go to sleep. Where before we were trying to make sure that we just got a certain amount in her. So she would do a weighted feed, and then we would, if it wasn't where we wanted it, we'd have to get a bottle, and I'm the bottle man. So I might have a shot at sleeping through the night. Whether or not my wife might not, but at least for right now, there's a shot. There's a possibility that I might be able to get through the night while she nurses. So who knows? All right,
it's tricky. Yeah, you're doing a good job, man. That first year of having a kid is just so disorienting. It's so hard. I mean, like, it's a blur when you look back, but when you're in it, it's so intense, and it's hard to keep it together. But you're doing a great job.
That's the other thing, though, is that I think it's safe to say that becoming a parent makes you more conservative than you were. I don't
Definitely.
know that it makes everybody conservative. I do think that it does make people more conservative than where they were. If even just because you were thinking more and more about something outside of yourself, you're thinking more communally than you are, which makes you a little bit less risk averse, which is the other part of this is that I'm like, is society drifting right? Or did I just have a kid? Like, is there I gotta keep the antenna tuned to society. I got to keep my CIA level vibe sommelier credentials here. I can't have, this kid has been a blessing on every level, but we need to make sure that we're still sniffing out the vibes appropriately. Kevin Ryan, where can people find you?
Twitter, the Kevin Ryan with underscores in there, or
Kevin Ryan, and you got writing coming up, right?
Oh, yeah. I got a few different pieces coming out. Got a magazine piece, the Michael Kamalas piece in a while. Got a piece about, like, mud car racing. and just some weekly stuff. I'm doing a Dark MAGA one, doing a piece on the history of the cult 45. So yeah, there's some cool stuff coming out. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, dog. Talk to you later.
Good chatting, man.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? I thought not. It's not a story the Jedi would tell you. That's a quote from a Star Wars prequel, and it is the final decider as to who I believe will win the president, the Senate, and the House. We're going to get back to that in a second, though. First, let me just empty the file on my 2024 election thoughts in order. First, the landscape. Donald Trump is a flawed candidate that is severely damaged by January 6th. And even before that, he was hard capped at 48%. It's the reason why his party tried to overthrow him during the primaries. But his resilience and ease in overcoming these challenges is something that we also do need to take into effect. Number two, Donald Trump began to gain and beat Joe Biden in head-to-head polling after he was indicted in his New York trial, and it has had a positive effect on his polling and fundraising. Now, this was the first moment that I began to believe Trump could have a redemptive arc electorally. If the public did not understand the charges against him and saw the prosecution as political, he would become a martyr beyond the core MAGA audience. Number three, the Dobbs decision has been rocket fuel for Democrats. In off-year elections, in special elections, right up to the present, reproductive rights have gotten Democratic voters to the polls. Now, my criticism that they might be punished for not taking the threat seriously enough has not panned out as of yet. It remains a big, big, big winner for them, at least up until this contest. And finally, Joe Biden's presidency has been broadly unpopular, and specifically unpopular to anyone who makes under $100,000 a year. Biden was elected in the panic of COVID to be a steady hand at the wheel. He lost that with Afghanistan, and he never regained it. The border went from a purely GOP partisan issue to a mainstream winner for Republicans almost entirely because of executive orders Biden made at the beginning of his presidency. And through issue after issue, the same playbook unfolded for the Bidens. Deny, deny, deny until you blame it on Trump. But nothing was more personal than inflation. A class warfare issue like no other. Here's a personal story. My wife and I were driving to dinner with our friends. The husband was at the wheel of their new Tesla. The issue of politics comes up. I mentioned that Trump was doing well because of the economy. But the economy's good, is the response. And it's a sentiment that I've heard from many people in my orbit and online. The stock market is booming. We avoided a recession. Inflation is lower in America than anywhere else in the world. How is this a weakness? And behind the wheel of a new Tesla, I agree, which is where we get to that $100,000 a year figure. Because anywhere below that, inflation gets infinitely and progressively worse. It's persistent and embarrassing, a ritual humiliation and reminder that you are not good enough. That stuff sticks with people. And that is the landscape that we are looking at. So how about the candidates that are duking it out? First, Trump. To say that Donald Trump has run his best campaign out of his 3 tries is an understatement. I'll be honest. I've long ago stopped trying to fully understand the logic of Trump. And in fact, it was in 2016 that I kind of just turned off my brain sometimes. His combativeness, the issues he centered, and his erratic behavior are impossible to grade. Why did he just send that tweet? Has he discovered a hidden undercurrent in American society? Or did the KFC bucket he had last night make him farty? Often he didn't seem to understand which way was up. He fired 2 different campaign directors in 2016. He fired one of them in 2020. And both times, when election day came, he was trailing mightily in the polls. The refrain for his chances became religious. He'll pull through because. But that's not the case this cycle. Susie Wiles, a Florida GOP veteran who watched her state go from purple to blood red, and Chris LaCivita, a bare-knuckle student of the last era of Republican dominance under George W. Bush, have run this ship from initial announcement to Election Day. Trump decapitated well-funded rivals in his own party, in DeSantis and Haley. He ended the political career of the man who beat him in 2020, Joe Biden. Tactically, his boat has been pointed in the right direction the entire time. Trump has stayed off Twitter. He has largely been able to avoid his habit of turning a bad 24 hours into a bad 3 days because of his inability to concede minor points. And he has mitigated his worst issue, abortion, as well as anyone who appointed the justices that flipped Roe versus Wade could. He's accentuated his strengths with the economy and immigration. But of course, he's still Trump. He's an asshole that viscerally annoys 40% of the country to the point of hatred. He is the loser piss baby who couldn't wrap his head around losing in 2020 and did it January 6th. And with that, I will now stay silent as you can add the pet issue or event that you believe best encapsulates why Donald J. Trump should never be president again. If you need more time, just skip backwards 10 seconds and then hit pause. But he also got shot in the face and survived on television. And I have no idea how that factors into an election. Which brings us to Kamala. Actually, wait a minute. We can't start there. We have to start with Biden. Joe Biden is unpopular. This is in part because of his failures played into both sides of the coin that helped him beat Donald Trump in 2020. His strength, foreign policy, where he sat on the powerful Senate committee for decades, was telegenically shattered with the Afghanistan withdrawal. It is impossible to say that you did a good job when people are falling off the landing gear of a plane that is leaving Kabul airport. His weakness is the border, which Biden gleefully signed executive orders for on day one of his presidency, creating another telegenic disaster and supercharged an abuse of America's asylum system. It's impossible to say a good job when hundreds of Haitians, Chinese, and Congolese have found themselves in Texas border towns, and they're all live on television. Add to that inflation. Add to that Gaza. But it is his age that ended his career, the one thing that he couldn't ultimately shift the blame on. The depression in Democrats created a panic for him to drop out, an unthinkable move, as late as it was in the campaign, which brings me to Darth Plagueis the Wise. It was at the RNC when I sat in stadium seating talking with a man I would later be told knows everyone in Washington. We were watching something in the arena in recess seating, which is pretty much the only thing that reminds me of Darth Plagueis, that moment in Revenge of the Sith. But anyway, we were kind of seated similarly. Anyway, I'm steadfast and pig-headed that Biden won't drop out. He's too stubborn, I say stubbornly. Very calmly, this man explains to me that Joe Biden will drop out, and he's going to drop out on Sunday. He would have done it before or during the RNC, but he didn't want to have the most important speech of his career be affected by the fact that he had just gotten COVID. Within an hour, Mark Halpern reported something similar. Sunday morning, I wrote a newsletter about how Biden would never say die. Sunday afternoon, Biden announced he would not seek the presidency. And I looked like quite the asshole. It was Jover. My assumption was that taking over a campaign midstream was like trying to fix an F1 car while driving it and winning a race at the same time. Impossible. And yet, we get to Kamala. The Democrats hot-swapped Biden for Kamala, and for a shining glimmer of a moment, it looked like something was really, really brewing. Brad Summer, coconut memes, unburdened by what has been. Sure, there were some weird moments. Why do so many big-name Democrats not want to be the VP? But the vibes, oh, the joy. When Kamala selected Tim Walz over Josh Shapiro, the leftist base of the party rejoiced. She had picked a man who's best at explaining liberal solutions to normies, not the polished Obama clone just because he's the very popular governor of a swing state. This is bold. This is new. This is interesting. And then she tacks right. Wait, why pick the guy that can explain single-payer healthcare with a Kamalas metaphor if you're going to talk about how Israel has the right to a lethal defense force that can eradicate any enemy it identifies? If you're going to do that, why not just pick the Jew who's plus 20 in Pennsylvania? At least she found a wedge issue to distance herself from... No, did not find a wedge issue at all. Did she parlay the buzz of the summer into a series of interviews with a friendly media to reintroduce herself? No, she was very stingy with interviews. I took a lot of crap from folks on this show when I said that she lost her debate with Donald Trump, not because she didn't rhetorically hold her own, but because she had the most to gain by telling America about herself. And she mostly spent her time running down Trump, something that's already been done. Is it cathartic after Biden's disaster? Sure, but that's not the mission. And she hasn't really done much since then. To her credit, her campaign has not been the flaming disaster that her 2019 run was. But one thing does seem to be the same as that debacle. The more America sees of Kamala Harris by polling, the less they like her. Which brings us to the race. Does it matter, Kamala's campaign? Donald Trump is a one-man get-out-the-vote drive for the Democrats. The specter of him returning to power raised over $1 billion since Kamala took over. And so to make a final decision, we need to decide what we believe. Do you believe polls that say Donald Trump is more popular than he has ever been? Do you believe polls that say Democrats are Obama-level excited for Kamala? Do you believe, as our friend Edinger Mentum has spelled out on his Substack, that polls are herding to a stalemate because they are terrified to overestimate Democratic support again for a third time with Trump and are therefore overestimating Republican enthusiasm? Do you believe that an administration with a 30-60 right track, wrong track environment can win re-election? It's a lot to think about. Much like the tragedy of doth plaguest the wise. Because in that conversation, where that man at the RNC told me the exact day that Biden would drop out, and I didn't believe him, he told me something else. He told me Kamala would be the candidate. Even further, he told me that Democratic power brokers knew she couldn't win, but that they know she's a bad candidate and they didn't want her around in 2028 when the party could really rebuild. So this is a suicide mission. Raise a lot of money, give her the old college try, pat her on the head when it's over, and never have to be in the Kamala Harris business again. So do I believe him? Here's what I believe. I believe that Donald Trump is inarguably the defining figure for a decade of politics, love him or hate him. There's really no other way to look at it. I believe that he's run a better campaign than both of his opponents. I believe enough independent voters did not have a good time in the last 4 years. I believe Donald Trump, the 45th president, will become the 47th president. Donald Trump will become the 4,547th president. I believe the map is too favorable to Republicans to not hand them the Senate, but I don't believe that a shoddy get-out-the-vote operation and a reliance on low-propensity voters in blue states is enough for them to win the House. Republican White House, Republican Senate, Democratic House. Out of the 4 scenarios that we have laid out over the last few months, I believe that Democratic civil war is the most likely. And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics, 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 written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio in Austin, Texas. Thank you to the Cosmic Kevin Ryan for coming on. TheYoungAmerican@gmail.com is where you need to go if you want to send us an email. Follow us on social media, Justin R. Young on TikTok, Instagram, and X. YouTube is Politics, Politics, Politics. You can always support us with a one-time donation. PayPal.me/PayJury. Venmo is Justin-Young-20. Cash App is PX3 Cash. And you can send me anything you'd like in the mail. P.O. Box 1531, 84 Austin, Texas 78715. Of course, you can always get our bonus content at TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Our $3 tier monthly gets you 2 bonus podcasts each and every single week. And, you know, as we get into the fallout of this, who knows how long it's going to take to count all these votes. Still a very good time to do it. Monthly, it is $3 a week. If you want to get on the annual plan, it's cheapest it's ever going to be. $99 for 150 episodes of the show. We are taking a haircut for you guys. Thank you to everybody who's taking advantage of that. Again, that will be available until election night. But if you want to have your name read at the end of the show, there's only one place to be, and that is the Titanic founding tier. Names like Pro Idiot, Meemaw to the Peepaw, Scott, Middle-Aged Mike, Tom, Jeremy, oh yeah, it's Adam, Chiller Tomatoes, Just Another Pilot, David, AB Puppy, Dr. Whiskey, Michael, Will, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Matt, Matthew, The Borge B, Andrew, Edwin, Sam, Phil, Andrew, Devon, Edison, Paul, Jerry, Gloria Young, my mom, a dog named Checkers, Berkeley Steven, John, and Zombie Doc. And of course, the one and only Sarah Genie. If you would like your name read at the end of the election episode, if you would like to be a part of our donor club, have your name read at the beginning of the episode for the election, well, send me an email. Otherwise, you can head on over to the politicspolitics.com. This is it. Don't get scared now. Crunch time. We will be live everywhere that I am live, on Twitch, Justin R. Young, on YouTube, Politics, 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 on X, Justin R. Young, on election night, an extravaganza. We'll be breaking all of it down. But till then, this is your old pal Justin Robert Young saying, some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics, and still more discuss politics. But this is the only show that dares discuss all 3.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show Audio.